opportunity of individuals to be employed.
Experts are of the view that with improved security and revival of ailing industries in Kaduna State to stimulate more economic activities will no doubt propel the airport to operate optimally like it equals in other cities of Nigeria.
Nigeria has 20 airports, many regulated airstrips and heliports, and 23 domestic airlines. Considering the importance of the aviation industry, President Muhammadu Buhari has said that Nigeria's aviation industry has the requisite potentials to contribute significantly to the country's economic growth and development. He said that his administration had resolved to transform the industry by addressing the challenges of infrastructure deficiency, navigational safety, airport security, and manpower shortage, amongst others. Nigeria has what it takes to make the aviation industry a catalyst for economic development, considering the quantity and quality of the country's abundant human and natural resources. That's our package today on Dateline 360. Thank you for your time. I remain Lydia Odidi Ochi. God bless Nigeria, and see you next week.
Nigerians. Suicide bomb, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
Slavery is an evil practice abolished all over the world over 200 years ago. But today, human traffickers are selling human beings as slaves in Africa. It is your responsibility to make sure that you and the people you know do not fall into slavery. Don't believe fake promises of jobs abroad.
People went to say Libya, Italy no use you when they carry me on top water. 4 days now they lock me for inside house, no food, no water. I nearly die. Now God, when me heaven and earth, now save me. If you get 1 naira for Nigeria, you get junior one, you say you no get papa, you no get mama, now make you come out. I beg go they do farm work. You better pass person when enter road.
Don't accept to travel to Europe through the Sahara Desert. You may be walking into slavery. Don't be a slave.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Agebenu Omoha is a graduate of Benue State Polytechnic, Ubokolo, from the Department of Graphic Art. He's very passionate about his work and has made it a point of duty to add value to young and aspiring artists. He goes from school to teach different aspects of art expression.
This batik is being produced. The batik you see people wear like the Yorubas and the Cameroonians wear most of the time, how they produce them. This is the processes on how they go about it. Like what you can see here are the materials. This is the one we melted. The reason why we melt this one is because there are some places you don't want the dye to absorb on the fabric. So you apply the wax on the fabric to make sure that the dye don't penetrate that place. That is the reason why we use the candle wax. As for the rest, they go together, but the candle wax stands alone. And for the brush you are seeing here, you can use the brush to use in making designs on the fabric. I'll spray the fabric and then we'll begin to apply the candle wax on the fabric.
President Buhari dispatches delegation to New York ahead of election for President of United Nations General Assembly.
Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority revokes pilot's license over violation of aviation regulations.
As Ramadan fast winds down, Muslims intensify search for new moon of Shawwal.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the gains of 20 years of democratic governance in Nigeria.
"20 years of uninterrupted democratic governance in Nigeria's Fourth Republic certainly did not come with a tea party."
Well, we'll recall that after independence, the country's political history was punctuated by long years of military rule with consequences that were not altogether healthy for the polity.
That's quite true, Kingsley. Now, the freedom of speech association that came with democracy was quite a breather, or if you ask me, huge relief for Nigerians who were mostly used to the pronouncement and execution of government policies by fiat during the military days.
All right, Blessing. Now, we also have to recall that with democratic governance now, we have robust debates, not just on the public arena, but also in the legislature, and this is at all tiers of government. And as many would say, but this is to ensure that public policy has a robust process before it becomes public.
Well, as you asked, there's so many things everyone is talking about for 20 years of democratic practice. Well, one of the questions would be, what 20 good things of 20 years uninterrupted democracy can you say for Nigeria? Is our democracy working? What are those challenges or concerns that define and refine democratic governance in Nigeria?
Yes, Blessing, thank you very much there. The point that you just raised now, 20 years of democracy, what are the 20 good things that you can point to has been the benefits of our democratic experience since 1999. But challenges persist, as many persons will say. So as an evaluative framework, we should also today be taking a look at how the various arms of government have fared so far since 1999. And by the way, we began this conversation last week when, as it were, we had a panoramic view of 20 years of democracy, taking a look at the philosophy of democracy itself and how well the country has fared. Today, we're going to have guests with us here in the studios as well as at our network centers who will give us more insights into the democratic experience that Nigeria has had in the Fourth Republic, which began on the 29th of May, 1999. It's on that note, of course, we'd like to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, being broadcast, as always, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
My name is Blessing Abu. It's good to have you join us again on the first edition for the working week. Well, as always, we have a complimentary segment, and that will come to you in the course of the program. Newspaper review, we'll take a look at business, sports, as well as foreign and entertainment news. But here's the news highlight with Elizabeth Amori. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning. It's nice to see you. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on the news segment of the program. Former Head of State General Abdul Salami Abubakar has given reasons for his absence at the 2019 presidential inauguration ceremony in Abuja. This was while speaking to NT News after an audience with President Muhammadu Buhari on the sidelines of the just concluded summit of the OIC in Makkah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
I left Nigeria in the middle of Ramadan for my Umrah, and that's why I was not able to come. And the president is aware of my absence. So
what, having been here, what have you been praying for Nigeria?
Certainly we have been praying for peace, for our economy to return, and so that we can have peace and have a country that everybody can be pleased with.
So what do you wish President Muhammadu Buhari in the next level?
Well, I wish him well, and I want him to, like the slogan said, take Nigeria to a higher level of prosperity, of security, and of democratic actions.
Ahead of election for President of the United Nations General Assembly scheduled to hold in New York on the 4th of June 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari has sent a federal government delegation to support Nigeria's candidate, Professor Tijani Mohammed Bande. Bande, who is permanent representative of Nigeria to the UN, will become the second Nigerian to be elected president of the United Nations General Assembly after Major General Joseph Nanve Garba retired, who held the position between 1989 and 1990. In a statement issued by Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, will lead the delegation, which includes the Director General of National Intelligence Agency, Executive Secretary of the Petroleum Technology Development Fund, and Senior Special Assistant to the President, Media and Publicity. President Buhari is confident that Nigeria's imminent presidency of the 74th session of the UN General Assembly will provide a unique opportunity to accentuate Nigeria's voice on political, social, economic, and environmental challenges facing the world. Nigeria hopes to build on progress achieved under Ecuador's presidency of the 73rd Assembly, led by Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garces, to further promote key themes that President Buhari has championed on the global stage since 2015, which includes climate change, combating terrorism and violent extremism, as well as establishing functional anti-corruption mechanisms to assist countries like Nigeria recover and repatriate stolen funds. Meanwhile, Muslims have been told to look out for the new moon of Shawwal 1440 after Hijrah today, Monday 29th of Ramadan, equivalent to 3rd of June 2019. A statement signed by Professor Sambo Wali Junaidu, the Chairman, Advisory Committee on Religious Affairs, Sultanate Council Sokoto, says the sighting should be reported to the nearest district or village head for onward communication to the Sultan. And also security, troops of XSS Harbin Kunama 111 have arrested 5 kidnappers near Sheme village along Ruwan Godiya Forest in Katsina. A statement by the Army of Public Relations, Colonel Sagir Musa, indicates that the operation is sequel to credible information about the criminals terrorizing the area. During preliminary investigation, the suspects confessed to be involved in kidnapping incidents in the general area, as well as sending their victims to their ringleaders based in a forest at Ruwangudia. Consequently, troops further searched Ruwangudia Forest and destroyed bandits and kidnappers' hideouts. The Nigerian Army appealed to the public to provide information about suspicious movements of criminals to the nearest army or any other security agencies for necessary actions. And now to other matters. In a bid to reduce deaths from road crashes, NEMA is collaborating with the Kogi state government to build an ambulance bay at Gegu-Beki in Kogi local government area. This decision was reached at a meeting between the representative of NEMA and Kogi state government in Lokoja.
You can avoid accident, you can prevent it, but whereby these two have failed, you have to make sure that the lives are properly managed, because the Director General discovered that most of the accidents that happen in Nigeria, most of the deaths, the casualties, are lost because of improper management.
At the instance of the states, because the House of Assembly in their resolution, requested the state government to ask for this facility to be established.
Now, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority has revoked the airline transport pilot's license of a pilot for serious violation of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulations. The revocation was a consequence of the pilot operating flights on non-scheduled operations while his medical certificate has expired. In a statement, the General Manager of Public Affairs, Sam Adurogboye, says during these flight operations, the pilot repeatedly exercised the privileges of his license when he was not qualified to exercise such privileges. According to him, the pilot's medical certificate commenced validity from 17th of July 2017 and expired on the 16th of January 2018, while another one was processed on the 11th of May 2018, which expired on the 10th of November 2018. The pilot has been directed to return the invalidated license of the authority's director to the authority's director of licensing within 7 days of receipt of a letter of sanction. Meanwhile, displaced persons in Sokoto State who would not return to their villages due to insecurity are to be resettled at places other than where the incidents occurred. Governor Aminu Waziri Tambuwal said this when he visited the IDP camp at Raba local government area.
The government of Sokoto State is willing and ready to resettle the people affected by banditry anywhere they are in Sokoto State, to any settlement they are more comfortable with other than their existing villages where they have had these instances.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has sent heartfelt condolences to members of the coalition of Buhari-Oshibajo movement, COBOM, on the loss of two very committed members, AFCON Ebenezer and Chief Charles Azubike Nwora Ojoko, who passed away after protracted illness. In a statement by the Senior Special Advisor Medium Publicity, Femi Adesina, AFCON Ebenezer was the Deputy Publicity Secretary of COBOM, who also ran a vibrant and pulsating social media campaign in support of the Buhari-Oshibajo ticket, despite suffering from a terminal disease, while Chief Nwora Ojoko belonged to COBOM and Buhari Hangout, where he campaigned vigorously. They will both be interred on the 28th of June 2019 in Akwa Ibom and Anambra states, respectively. And that's the news on Good Morning Nigeria. Blessing and Kingsley will be back for more. Stay with us.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hotsports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Nigeria's premier sports production and marketing group, Hotsports, partners with the biggest, the largest, and the #1 television network in Africa, the NTA, to give Nigerians a memorable viewing experience. Boost fan support for the Super Eagles to glory in Egypt. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
It's Ramadan. It's okay to share what you love. Ramadan Kareem from Indomie. Indomie Super Pack now available at 85 Naira.
Welcome to South Africa, your own personal playground.
Allow us to spoil and pamper you.
And delight you with our favorite local flavors.
Allow us to show you the full VIP experience.
Allow us to indulge your shopping desires.
and show you the places closest to our hearts.
Allow us to cater to your every need.
It takes a lot of people to make your holiday special. Fortunately, we have 54 million of them.
NTA Television College Jos announces admissions into 2-year diploma programs in film and television production, television engineering, and broadcast journalism. The sale of forms will commence on the 13th of May and run through 30th July 2019. Admission forms can be obtained from all marketing offices, NTA state capital stations, zonal centers, or at the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos.
On payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA TV College. Applicants can also obtain the forms through the NTA TV College portal at www.ntatvc.edu.nj.
Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE or SSCE in relevant areas of study in not more than 2 sittings, including English and mathematics. All properly completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before 30th July 2019. For further inquiries, please visit our website at ntatvc.com or call 0803 3144 383.
NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Registrar Announcer.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, moving on to the world of business, the Central Bank of Nigeria reiterates readiness to sustain growth momentum in the nation's economy. Details of this and more in our business news with our correspondent, Chimaobi Walter Nanji.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has sworn as a monetary policy agency to sustain positive growth through price and monetary stability that is conducive to growth. The Apex Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele, while fielding questions from newsmen on the focus of his second tenure in office, said the CBN will tighten its efforts, especially against individuals who intend to circumvent government policies for personal gains.
And doing that means that we and the monetary authorities must fold our sleeves and see to it that we do something that will be pro-growth. And I've explained it. Explain it in the sense that I say, yes, what did you do to bring inflation down? We'll continue to do. What did you do to continue to reduce our imports? We'll continue to do. Nigerian policymakers are good at developing policies. But the biggest and the bane of Nigerian economic policy is that people circumvent the policies. Given this opportunity now, we will make it very difficult for people to circumvent economic policies.
Meanwhile, a total of 557 million electronic payment transactions were recorded in selected banks across the country in first quarter 2019, valued at 34.02 trillion naira. This was revealed by the National Bureau of Statistics in a report on selected banking sector data breakdown of credit, e-payment channels, and staff strength data posted on its website. The report noted that Nigeria Interbank Settlement System instant payment transactions dominated the volume of transactions recorded within the period under review. According to the report, credit to the private sector allocated by the banks stood at 11.21 trillion naira as at first quarter of 2019, while the oil and gas and manufacturing sectors got credit allocation of 3.49 trillion naira and 2.23 trillion naira to record the highest credit allocation as at the period under review. Staff strength in the banking sector increased by 0.33% quarter-on-quarter from 104,669 in fourth quarter 2018 to 105,017 in first quarter of 2019. And that's business news. I'm Chimaobi Walter Naji.
Thank you very much, Chimaobi. Now for our newspaper review. Let's find out what stories are trending on the front line.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is with us on the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
I hope you had a pleasant weekend.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
except that I had also the shock when Anthony Joshua lost.
Yeah, it was a huge upset in the world of boxing. Andy Ruiz Jr. taking him out in the 7th round. It's pretty shocking. I mean, there's no doubt about that. One of the biggest upsets you would find in heavyweight boxing.
Yes.
Something like that happened in February 1990. I remember James Buster Douglas taking out Mike Tyson. It was the first time that Mike Tyson had been knocked down in his entire career. But in the end, he lost that fight. You also recall in 1978 when Leon Spinks defeated Muhammad Ali.
Yes.
Yes, I never forgot the phrase or the expression of Leon Spinks in 1978. That's over 40 years ago. He said, Muhammad Ali is the greatest, but I am the latest. So Andy Ruiz Jr.
He didn't even believe he had defeated
absolutely, yes, absolutely. So Andy Ruiz Jr. is the latest. Latest kid on the block. So
Joshua is still the greatest. Anyway, let's see. Well, I think there's always a time for another time.
Yes.
So don't feel too sad. Okay, let's take a look at the papers. Daily Trust, let's lead with that. Leading for the Daily Trust this morning, ex-governors, ministers jostle to make Buhari's cabinet. More details about that on page 5 of the paper. But just above that, we have 12 killed in Taraba villages. That story is trending on page 4. And Nigeria risks losing $9 billion over failed contract. More details about that on page 3. And quickly now to the Punch newspaper. PDP National Working Committee meets this week over 9th National Assembly leadership. There is a rider to that story. Vote leaders of your choice. ACF tells senators and reps-elect. More details on pages 24 and 25 of the Punch newspaper. And the photograph you have there is of rice millers and producers, but there is a cry out. Government assistance not getting to us. Rice farmers cry out. More details on page 2. Kingsley?
All right, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune, above the nameplate, 2 headlines there, and then, of course, we go further below the nameplate to take other headlines. SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission, partners EFCC to tackle crime in capital market. I am not contesting to be speaker, that's according to Dogara. And then below the nameplate, don't attack president and governance, Kumuyi. Tells Christians. Transparency will be our watchword. Makinde, that's the new governor for your state. Aboath, that's Afaba Balola University Teaching Hospital, recalls first breakthrough in open heart surgery. That's on page 34. Next story, it says, Oyegun tackles Oshomole with 2 riders there. Says he lacks capacity to manage a political party. And Oshomole fails because he lacks the temperament that is required to run a political party. Details of that story can be found on page 8. Now, also there on the front page, article to Bukachua. Time is running out. Appoint new chairman for Presidential Tribunal. That's page 8. And 5 flags and cars with Biafra insignia recovered in Anambra, JTF says. Zamfara judgment. PDP tackles presidency over Sage's comment on judiciary. That's on page 2. And Lagos, Rivers, Osun, Kaduna, and Imo top list of highly indebted states. And that's according to a report, details of which can be found on page 2. And the photograph there shows President Muhammadu Buhari receiving former head of state, General Salami Abubakar, in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. And just by the way, before we bring you in, the same story you have on article to Bukachua, which we just read there, is the lead for the Nigerian pilot. The Nigerian pilot says, Atiku and PDP tackle Bukachua again with 3 riders. Right to remind her of her promise to make a replacement, having recused herself. Expressed concern over delay in appointing her replacement. The tribunal already lost 77 out of 180 days. It has to conclude hearing and deliver judgment. That's on page 8.
Yeah, there's pressure. And apparently there are indications also that another female justice may be appointed to replace Justice Bukachua on the panel. Presently, there are 2 senior justices in that line. The most senior currently is the female Justice Morenike Ogunwumiju of the Beni Division. The second is Justice Monica Dongban MNSM of the Enugu Division of the Court of Appeal. Either of them could be appointed to head the Presidential Petitions Tribunal. The other day, the President of the Court of Appeal is said to have remarked that I hope that the parties will not accuse the next female of bias. Now, let's come to the issue of jostling for cabinet position. It has begun in earnest, and the Daily Trust has a list of those who are actually in the tussle. Among these are said to be former governors and also former ministers. Daily Trust say that most ministers in the first term of President Muhammadu Buhari are lobbying to return. Secondly, the second category are former governors who are now senators-elect and are warming up to be appointed ministers. The third category include first-term governors who failed to win election. Presently, the All Progressive Congress had 10 governors who have left office recently. 4 of them, former governors, are now won election into the Senate. One has a certificate of return withheld. 2 former governors did not win their bid to return to go and retire to the Senate. So the other indications are that the president indicated that cabinet members perform well, and this has emboldened many of the former cabinet ministers, and they are also intensified their lobbying. There are 7 senators who are former governors in the Senate who are also interested. The president has kept the list close to his chest. He indicated, if you recall, during his first return from his travel to United Kingdom, that he has not discussed it with anybody. But Daily Trust indicate that there's a likelihood that instead of 36 plus 1 ministers, we are likely to see 42 ministers, but it didn't give details of how it will grow to that extent. Speculations galore. Another one is that there's a first time that the president is also likely to submit the list to the All Progressive Congress before it is made public. Meanwhile, a human rights lawyer is reported to have approached the court for interpretation of Section 151 and Section 171 of the Constitution. He is to seek pronouncement of the court about 100 aides of the president who continue to be in office after being reappointed. Section 151 stipulates that, among others, that the appointment as special advisors at the pleasure of the president shall cease when the president ceases to hold office. Section 171 also lists some appointments, which includes secretary to the government of the federation, as well as the personal staff of the president, and they are appointed at the pleasure of the Mr. President, and the appointment is supposed to cease when the president ceases to hold office. You will recall that the president ceased to hold office temporarily midnight of 28th of May. Until he was sworn in on 29th.
Yeah, you said that, but there was a simple...
it was raised, we raised it on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a simple constitutional issue, but of course, no need to complicate matters. The truth is, appointees of the president to hold their appointments at the pleasure of the president, which means you can be fired at any time. But then you also hold your appointment on the basis of the tenure of your appointor. But of course, if you are favored and the president would like to reappoint you, and before the formalities are completed, you could continue to work without answering to the particular designation. Take a look, for instance, at special advisors. The Constitution requires the president, to apply to the National Assembly to say, I intend to appoint so many number of special advisors. And the National Assembly will give it, usually there are no quarrels over that. But until that is done, there's nobody answering to the title of special advisor at the moment. But if the president wants you to continue, of course, you could be working, without necessarily bearing the title. I mean, you can say SGF himself is a lawyer. That's the Boss Mustafa. And you have not seen him present himself as such, even though he was chairman of the inauguration committee. Of course, the chances are that, he might be favored again by the president, as we saw with Obasanjo
from 1999 to 2007 when Chief Ufote Kaite was SGF for a period of 8 years.
Yes.
So, well, let's see how the matter proceeds in court with regard to the action being taken out by the lawyer at the moment. Usually there's continuity in some of these appointments. The other point to also clarify, it has to do with the chairmanship of the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal, over which, of course, the PDP and Atiku drafted a petition, and of course the matter was dismissed, but then the president of the Court of Appeal decided to recuse herself by stepping down. I just need to state this. It is not a gender issue. It has to do with spousal affiliation. So it could have been a man, who was so accused, not because her lordship, it's a woman, that the matter came up. If it were the husband who was president of the Court of Appeal and she was on the other side, she had won governorship or her son, I'm sure perhaps the matter would also have arisen. All right.
Okay, let's take a look at some other stories quickly. At the foot of the Daily Trust, we have some other stories. Why NECO, that's Examination Council, scrapped use of scratch cards. That story is trending on page 3. Now, to aviation, airlines to adopt new baggage screening measures. You find more details about that story on page 6. Okay, to the Punch newspaper, the foot of the page 2, we have some other stories. Show evidence of earned allowance in 2019 budget, ASU tells federal government. More details about that on page 13. Abuja pastor rapes impregnates teenager and blames the devil. Page 5 will let you into that. Investor of Unizik scandal, Uniben denies issuing embattled lecturer examiner's certificate. Pages 4 and 5 will let you into the story. Okay, to the editorial, Bayo. Okay, we have more stories.
A couple of stories from the Nigerian pilot. This time from the bottom half of the Nigerian pilot. You have the other stories there. That's the Nigerian pilot now. That's the bottom half. It says killers of Anglican bursar say they have informants in banks. Killers of Anglican bursar say they have informants in banks. That's page 5. Dino Melaye expresses resolve to contest Kogi governorship election. And media reports that I'm opposed to local government autonomy misleading. That's a term. And AG's office, Attorney General's office, gives reasons why Saraki must face fresh trial. That's on page 9.
Okay. Talking about new governors, new broom sweeping clean, some governors have been hit the ground running. In Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has declared an emergency over refuse disposal and the state of the environment, and he's contemplating restoring the monthly sanitation exercise. In Borno State, Governor Professor Zulum also visited the secretariat. He was surprised to find only 375 civil servants on duty at 9 o'clock out of about 12,000 civil servants. He has, however, rather than punish those who were not there, he rewarded those who were early on duty, and the arrears of salaries will be paid in exclusion of those latecomers. In Oyo, the Governor Makinde has prescribed the National Union of Road Transport Workers Union. They are alleged to be the source of disruption of public peace in that ancient city. Meanwhile, 12 newly sworn governors have inherited a total of 2 trillion naira of foreign and domestic debt. The National Bureau of Statistics put across the total debt of the 12 states at $2.1 billion, equivalent of 658 billion, while the combined domestic debt is about 1.354 trillion. The highest debtor so far is Lagos State, and here they've listed 4 other states. Lagos State has a debt profile now of about 967.4 billion. However, Governor Ambode, when he came in 2015, had actually inherited 418.2 billion. In Ogun State, the debt is about 130.23. Governor Amosu inherited 97 billion in 2011. Oyo, Makinde, who already has said he cannot pay 30,000 naira minimum wage, has inherited 123.6 billion, when his predecessor had actually, Ajimobi, had inherited 4.2 billion when he came in. In Imo State, the debt is, foreign debt is 59.5 billion and domestic debt 98.7 billion. Okorocha inherited 100 billion debt in 2011. So
anyway,
that is the...
incidentally, the editorial is even taking a look at the second term tax before the governors. And some of those things you've already talked about, be the issue of domestic or international. Then when reports actually castigating issues about Nigerians' poor state or poverty level, some actually stem from the states before we actually move to the federal government's outlook. So, second term tax for governors, already you said some of them actually hit the ground running. So what promises they made during the campaign should actually take a different shape?
Yes, in fact, the editorial is saying that the time for campaign is over, the time for national development is now. Yeah. And so those rhetorics of the campaign should now devolve into the reality of actual delivering the dividends of democracy. They, however, has pointed out some of the challenges, and some of the challenges they are talking about is that Nigeria is rated, though a rich nation, but the people are poor. And therefore, the challenge is for the governors to lift the status of their people from across the state. Therefore, if you lift the status of the persons in all states of the Federation, gradually it will dovetail into lifting the status of all Nigerians in the nation. And they also blame the governors and say that they always abdicate their responsibility for security by giving excuses that they don't have control of security. And the editorial is saying that they should be challenged to give detailed account of the security votes they have. Rather, they should make attempts to clear the arrests they owe, and brace up to provide the reasons for their election. That is providing development for the people.
By the way, the editorial is from the Daily Independent, and it's found on page 16. Thank you very much, Bayo.
Thank you too.
I'll see you again tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be another day, God willing.
Yeah. Yes, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest television network. Now, 20 years of democratic experience, experiment, or whatever the name you've given to it. What are those big wins on the 20 side? We'll find out as we take on this particular topic this morning. But that will be after this break.
The general public is hereby invited to the unveiling ceremony of a historical exhibition in pictures, arts and immersive environment as part of activities lined up to mark the 2019 Democracy Day commemoration. The exhibition with the theme Unbroken Democracy is scheduled to take place as follows. Date 7th June 2019. Venue International Conference Center, ICC. Time 4:30 p.m. Please note, the exhibition will remain open to the public until June 12, 2019. Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, announcer.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
Ever since he could hold a bat, Charles wanted to play like his big brother. Victor had skills that matched the best in the land. Never mind, little brother. Drink your Dano milk and keep practicing. So that is what he did. And step by step, glass by glass, the boy grew in spirit and strength. Drink your Dano milk and be strong.
Also available in Dano Cool Cow, Dano Slim, and Dano Flavored Milk. Choose Dano. Choose goodness.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria if you just tuned in, and it's on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, we began our series evaluating 20 years of democratic governance in Nigeria last week, and today we'll be looking at the positives of our democracy. But just before we kickstart our discussion, let's get to hear some sound bites from the excerpts of last edition as put together by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
I think we have gone a very long way. This is the first time that we have had this length of time without having to break the trajectory of democratic rule in Nigeria. Our experience has also grown from when we started in 1999, this republic, when we started in 1999, and what we went through, particularly during elections in 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, and now 2019.
The nature of the person in charge also more or less determines the character of the process. For example, if you look at when Obasanjo was in charge, Obasanjo was more interested, his leadership style was more like micromanaging. So he gets very interested in who is there, who is running for that, and takes interest in the minutest details. And that also affected the character. Sometimes he doesn't like your face, he will engineer your removal. Then you get to people like Jonathan, who was more or less at least seen as a gentleman, who, being a politician but not in the mold of a garrison commander, he did something differently. And down to Buhari, who more or less, once you nominate him, he seems to like take a back seat. You know, if he selects, if you want to run, he seems not. Some people will say he gives people space. Others will say he just kind of outsources the process. If you're the man he trusts, he outsources everything to you.
For me, 2 decades of our democratic journey, and the Nigerian female is still asking for a space. Please put me on the table.
The mistake we tend to make some of the time is to think that when we talk about so-called dividend of democracy, you know, actually there are issues around who originated that word. You know, one governor in the East one time was saying that he was the one, then some other person was challenging him. But that's just by the way, you know. But it is not. It is very preposterous, really, and very wrong for us to think that we can only assess, we can only evaluate our gains, you know, in physical terms. The software aspect of it is very, very important, you know, because societies move in phases, you know, and some of them are fundamentally attitudinal. You know, our attitude as a people, you know, was bruised, was badgered over many years by the military. It will take time. We're just 20 years consistently in a democratic experiment. It will take time for us to mutate out of our past experience.
All right, now those were sound bites from the first segment of a conversation on 20 years of uninterrupted democratic governance in Nigeria. That conversation, of course, took place late last week. Now we have guests with us in the studios, as we indicated. First, let's welcome again Professor Oserime Osumbo. Professor Osumbo, of course, a 2-term senator in the Instant Republic from 1999 to 2007, and he was also governor of Edo State. Professor Osumbo, a pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
My pleasure, too. Good morning.
All right, so we also would like to have with us in the studios Mr. Femi Adesina. Femi Adesina, of course, has been president of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Of course, a small P when he was serving with the president as well as the presidency as an advisor to the president on media and publicity. Mr. Adesina, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay. And joining us from our Kaduna Network Center is another regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Yunusa Tanko. Dr. Tanko is former chairman, Interparty Advisory Council, that is IPAC, and also a one-time presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party. Dr. Tanko, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
It's always a pleasure to work with you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Right. So let's begin the conversation. With those who have had hands-on experience, as the three of them, of course, we have with us on the program this morning. First, Professor Osumbo, what is there to say about 20 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria?
Well, Kingsley, to start with, as they say, if you want to know how far you have traveled on a journey, you must be able to know where you started from, the point of commencement. So to be able to assess how far we've gone and what achievements we've recorded, we have to look back at where we were on the 28th of May, 1999, and compare it with what we've been able to achieve since then. What we've been able to achieve, I can group into two main categories. Those achievements that are tangible and others that are intangible. You cannot see them, you cannot touch them, but they are of immense benefit to the people of Nigeria. And looking back at where we were on the 28th of May, 1999, of course, we were under military rule, which meant that those who were responsible for the governance of Nigeria did not come in by way of the will of the people. They imposed themselves. It was just who had the superior firepower, and whoever had the superior firepower assumed power. Therefore, they didn't come in through an expression of the will of the people. But since the inception of the restoration of democracy in 1999, we've seen government being a reflection of the will of the people, largely, by and large. Not in all cases. There have been a few aberrations here and there, but by the general evolution of the process, we've seen that government is now answerable to the people that put them there. Because the military were not answerable to the people. In fact, some of them will tell you that they are not here through the will of the people, so they are not answerable. They just did their best to respond to the will of the people. But now we have a government that is there which comports its affairs in accordance with the rule of law and constitutionalism, which we didn't have before. And the fact that we are operating under a constitution has a lot of implications. For instance, freedom, which people have. Freedom of fair trial, fair hearing, absence of restriction of freedom of movement, and so forth and so on, which were abridged, very much abridged under the military rule. We have those things now. Perhaps human freedom is the most valuable thing that people can have. Otherwise, so it's not good to be a slave, or you have a situation where you are not able to express yourself. So that freedom is very fundamental. Then, of course, there are the tangible benefits which we can talk about. A lot of progress have been made, again, because the government is answerable to the people. When a budget, for instance, is passed, there are projects that are listed there, and members of the legislature are there to ensure that the executive implements those projects. It wasn't so. They ask questions. Under the military, you dare not ask any question. You don't even know how the budget, the appropriation comes about. You don't know. On the 1st of January, they will read the budget speech. Nobody ever bothers to find out to what extent those budgets are implemented. They were not accountable to the people. But since 1999, we have budgets which are debated. There are inputs from Nigerians. The implementation is interrogated, is investigated. There is oversight function. Again, you want to say to what degree, between the federal level and the state level. But those things exist. These are some of the things we can now look at the tangible benefits, whether it's in the area of infrastructure, whether it's in the area of revamping of the education sector. A lot is being achieved, especially with the TED Fund, In fact, I was listening to a program a few days ago on TED Fund. A lot has been achieved in our tertiary institutions compared to where we were in 1999. And then, as I said, roads, infrastructure, railways that were more or less moribund are back. Airports are being revamped. So we can talk about these various achievements, but they will fall within this category as to whether you regard them as tangible or intangible achievements.
Right, thank you very much, Professor Sumbo. I have this additional, of course, this has been described as the longest experience for us after 3 years of military rule. And yes, it's been described in so many ways, nascent democracy, fledgling democracy, but then it is here. Is this the kind of democracy that we looked out for in 1999? And what has been the experience for you so far?
Thank you. Democracy must naturally evolve. And if after 3-4 years you truncate it every time, it will never grow. But now we have seen it for 20 years running, unbroken. That therefore means our democracy is growing. Whatever the mistakes we have made, we have learned from those mistakes and we have progressed. So I believe that it's a better deal for us, it's a better deal for Nigerians, and it will continue to grow. We'll continue to learn from the mistakes and we'll continue to make progress.
One of the guests in the soundbite talked about attitudinal change to what we're experiencing or what we're experimenting with. How has this resonated with Nigerians over the years in making it work, and has it come to stay?
Yes, you observe that Nigerians themselves prefer democracy to any other kind of governance. Over the years, you have seen that they are enthusiastic in electing their leaders. They enjoy the opportunity to elect their leaders. They love the fact that they have a say in who rules them. And they can ask questions. They do ask questions, which was not possible under the experience we've had in Nigeria. So I believe that Nigerians prefer democracy, and they will also love to see it grow until it gets to where they really want it to be.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Additional, thank you very much. Let's go over now to our Kaduna Network Center, where we allow to introduce Dr. Yunusa Tanko. Dr. Tanko, what is there to crow about 20 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria?
Yeah, quite an interesting area. But first of all, let me just congratulate Nigerians for the uninterrupted democratic governance in the country. I remember when we fought for democracy as a civil society groups and all. And today we are enjoying that particular democracy. What stands tall for me, which I will re-echo, is the freedom of speech and freedom of association, the right to elucidate and amplify your own feeling, what you feel is wrong in the system. Gradually, you will have seen Nigerians becoming more or less like almost all Nigerians have become political analysts, and they are becoming so good in it. As it has turned out in the debates where the Nigerian youth debated so hardly to ensure that a bill is being passed. Now we now have the not too young to wrong bill, which is being passed into law. And there was a saying at that particular point in time, when you come to NTA, you will be gagged, you will not be allowed to speak your mind, or probably your views will be censored. I am a testimony. I can say when I decided to run for the presidency, NTA was the first media to cover the program in Kano. And I know quite a lot of my other colleagues who are in the opposition have been given the opportunity to ventilate their position in the NTA. And so we will congratulate NTA for that particular steady improvement in terms of ensuring that the Nigerian people have other views to hear from people who are being categorized as nobody at a particular point in time. And then secondly, when you look at the level of development that cut across the states, is quite unprecedented. I give an example of 3 states. These states are Akwa Ibom, Kano, and then Ondo State. In terms of Akwa Ibom, somebody was making reference to issue of attitudinal change. Ebon Victor has started the governance in that particular with an architectural design of what they want the state to be. And then when Akpabio took over, he actually actualized those particular things. And then when you have now Udom is now kind of consolidating on what they have. Now you can see, before you used to see a Kaite doing some manual job and all, but you don't see them anymore because the state has transformed tremendously beyond some people's imagination. What Mimiko did in Ondo State was unbelievable. These are some of the things that they... And then a state like Kano, which is my own state, felt challenged. And you can now see how the old city in Kano has been midwifed together with the new city, with the Okmos Bridge, by Konkosu, and what you saw as regard to the buildings of the Konkosia building and all. So these are practical things that we've already seen. And with regard to the level of creation of wealth and sharing of wealth and then probably giving employment, we have 109 senators. We have 360 Federal House of Representatives. We have 36 governors. We have 774 local government. Not talk about the State Assembly, numerous members. Not talk about councillors. Now, there was this particular joke I usually play. I say, if not for anything, at least somebody who has already been playing card on the street now become a councillor, he can flaunt his agbada on the street and say, yes, I'm a councillor. These are part of one achievement that you cannot take up. And then the large number of employment that has been given to Nigerians, training them gradually, knowing what democracy is all about, was a great achievement. And then you say democracy is about the rule of law and order. And you can see there's a clear-cut separation of power between the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary, which culminated into also the states, the three tiers of government, that is the federal and the state, and then the local government. Even though the local government issue is still something that we need to really work on very hard, because that is actually where the dividends of democracy will get to Nigerians. And then, you know, there's this particular aroma of feeling that Nigeria is being respected in the Committee of Nations because we are in democracy. Because at a point in time when we are in military regime, nobody really wants to reckon with you. But here we have a democratic system where people feel that, yes, this country is democratically evolving, and then people want to really associate with Nigeria. And then there is this particular respect also for human rights, which everybody can come out and challenge the status quo. Ask for XYZ, accountability as regard to what you promised Nigerians that you will do. And if you fail to do that, they have the right to change that particular government, which of course we are yearning for if this particular government refuses to do what he has promised to do to Nigerian people. Now, for me, Nigeria has enjoyed democracy, but there are various room for improvement, and those improvements can level very clearly in terms of education, in terms of power supply, in terms of ensuring there is gainful employment for the Nigerians, and then transforming the economy in such a way that Nigerians will feel that there is governance for the people, because for too long, even though in democracy, the Nigerian people have been held in disdain for too long, and I think it's totally unacceptable. But meanwhile, I think democracy is so good for Nigerians.
All right. Dr. Yunusa Tanko, thank you very much there for your perspective. I was just wondering, Blessing, and also for the benefit of our guests, since we are looking back into time, as part of the freedoms that our guests have articulated as one of the key benefits of 20 years of uninterrupted democracy, we recall that there was, in this country during the military regime, what was known as Decree 2, State Security Detention of Persons. That was a notorious piece of legislation that they had on that during their time. But there was also a phenomenon that when you're looking at the tangibles, as Professor Osumbo also talked about, other than the General Yakubu Gowon military regime, which lasted from 1966 until 1975, and then you had military governors from 1967, where military governors stayed in office for up to 8 years, before the General Gowon was then ousted. Subsequently, when you had military regimes, the governors barely stayed for 2 years, and they called it military postings. Now you are having governors who are staying for 4 years at least, and then going on to stay for 8 years. Could this also be a factor in part of the tangibles that we are seeing, even though questions continue to persist as to the quality and quantity of the positives. Professor Osumbo.
Yes, there's no doubt that with more time, you get a lot more achieved. So we are finding a situation now where governors ordinarily are elected for a 4-year term. And so they're able to achieve the stability, which is very important in governance. There's more stability now than under the military. There's also a measure of independence, of action, of thought, because of the federal system that we operate. Under the military, it's a unitary system. Even though you may have a military governor in a state, he is answerable. There's very little he can do without approval from the military head of state. But now governors have a very huge leeway to act and exercise their independence, listen to their people, listen to their houses of assembly, and implement those things that their people want. Under the military, it was not like that. So those two key things, the stability in the system and the independence of thought, independence of action, which governors are able to exercise under a democratic dispensation, which was absent during the military regime.
Yeah, all right. So
Okay, just one quick one too. For us experimenting with this, it's on a different side. From the humble 3 number of political parties in 1999, or at least less than that number, to what we have today, about 91 political parties. How would you describe that particular stance and how we've evolved?
Well, in the last years of military, there was a huge clamor for return to democratic rule. And simultaneously in the international community, the vogue was on multi-party democracy, because there were some countries that pretended to be democratic but had only one political party, which really didn't offer people the benefits of democratic dispensation. So at the international level, there was, it became important to emphasize multi-party democracy. So when this current republic was being midwifed, the military then insisted that there would be a multiple of parties that were registered based on certain criteria that they enunciated, starting with the local government elections of 1998 December, that they would register political parties based on the standing of the unregistered provisional political parties at that time. You remember that based on the result of those elections, the PDP was clearly ahead, followed by APP. The AD didn't quite meet the threshold, but the military thought that, first, to be sensitive to the feelings of the Southwest, and then also to give more zest to the quest for multi-party democracy, they had to register AD as a third party. As you said, we've evolved so much and transformed from that 3-party system to 91 now. I have had occasion in this studio, in this program before, to mention that when I was Senate Committee Chairman on INEC under the Pius Ayim dispensation, INEC at that time actually proposed an amendment which sought to introduce checks on formation of political parties, additional requirements. For instance, that it must have spread. The party must open offices in at least two-thirds of the state of the federation, and so forth and so on. But those requirements were challenged. I remember Chief Ganifa Wahimi was the counsel. He went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court invalidated those provisions in the Electoral Act of 2001, that they were an infringement on the provisions of the Constitution as regards the formation of political parties. Okay. And that all that you needed to do to register a political party was just to fulfill the very lax requirements under the Constitution. So that more or less opened the floodgates. But now we've come to the other extreme of beginning to wonder whether we are not making a ridicule of the process. Of course, it's necessary to open the political space. That is the main thing that people were talking about, open the political space. But we are beginning to see that the gate is too open and all manners of things are coming in for the serious and unserious and for the mischievous and so forth and so on. So I think the time has come for us as a country to revisit this whole thing. The Constitution is being amended from time to time. We see this. And maybe since it is outside of the powers, it's outside of the competence of the National Assembly to make a law to introduce these additional requirements, it can come by way of constitution amendment. That was the issue that the Supreme Court was talking about, that it was incompetent for the National Assembly to add additional requirements. But it won't be incompetent if it is by way of constitutional amendment.
Professor Sumba, thank you very much. Indeed, that constitutional amendment has come by way of the fourth alteration, where you have a slew of amendments, including, of course, the addition of the not too young to run, and the fact that political parties must meet a certain threshold for them to continue to be in existence, even though there is some potentially troubling provision there, that if they want a council seat, for instance, they could remain. But who takes charge of council elections? And where in the country do you have all of the councillors duly elected without caretaker committee? I just want to pause here in the studios and go back to our Kaduna studios, since we are on the issue of one of the institutions of democracy, which has to do with political parties. And Dr. Yunus Atanko, of course, has been with the National Conscience Party, which actually litigated on this issue that opened the floodgates. And as Professor Osumbo has said, it looks like the gates are now too wide open. So have we exaggerated, if you like, the associational rights inherent in Chapter 4 of the Constitution by having just too many political parties and then having 6-yard wrappers as ballot papers at elections?
We've debated this matter over and over, even on this Good Morning Nigeria. And let me make this clear projection. When even our late leader, Chief Ganifa Amin, went to court, the intention was to open the space so that you could have a wider view, opportunities for others to make their own position known. And then probably the political party with their ideology, some can enjoy the dividends of this democracy. And we still stand by it, and seriously too. What we have is just about 92 political parties, and a lot of people have been crying why and say maybe the gate is too open. No, the truth about it is that the gate was being shut down to all other political parties. I'll give you an example. Everybody wants to go to where the food is cooked. You want to either go to APC or PDP. But remember, even before APC came on board, it was this particular multi-party political system that gave birth to this particular APC. Remember, we have the CPC, we have the ANPP, we have some part of ABGA, we have some member of other political parties who culminated in becoming the APC, the ACN, and the rest of them. And that is how political parties evolve. Even in the United States, you have a large number of political parties. And then with those political parties, you can decide on which political party to go to. It's not about Democrat and Republican or the Conservative or the Labour in UK. No, there are far, far larger political parties existing. But what they have that we don't have is that they don't gag others. They don't use the state resources to their total advantage against others. Probably this is the time for us to start discussing about this proportional representation, which we have been championing for quite a while. Look, the last election was being won by 15 to 11 million. Now, 15 to 11 million, are you trying to tell me that the first past the post, the people that won with 15 million, then others do not mean anything again? And that's where we are getting it wrong, because the 11 million and other political parties too are Nigerians, and they have something they want to give to the society. So proportional representation may help us in midwifing this particular level of probably having other political parties to be in power. So you don't need to beg. You don't need to ask somebody to give you position. If you have like 5% cut across the election, you can be in governance according to the constitution. You can serve in them, and then you start growing bit by bit from there. But if you gag people, what you will end up having is a kind of an implosion that will happen, which is already happening in some of the political parties who are in power. If you do not belong to a particular clique, you cannot even aspire to get to a particular place. And that is unacceptable. That is not democracy at all. So what we will say, and agree with you totally, is that it's either we find a way of making sure that all the political parties have a logistical supply of funding, which is key, because that is what is inimical to their survival. The other political parties that you are seeing in power are not in there by their own might. They are confirmedly using state resources to be in that particular position. And you can't expect me to go into a politicking when I'm competing with somebody who is already using presidential fleet, who is using government resources, or even donation, even if he doesn't want. People who believe that he's already in power, they want to donate to him unprecedentedly. And then you think probably they will compete, I will compete against such person. And I see you keep on saying that, even in a bend-down market where you go to buy okrika, is the person that has the best money that can choose the best out of those particular clothes. So, look, let us not deceive ourselves. I learned that the INEC chairman is trying to call for a electoral reform and all. This is where all the political parties with the INEC chairman can go for a retreat. Let's go for a retreat somewhere in 2-3 days. Let's discuss sincerely about the political and democratic statements in this country. Let's be sincere to ourselves and not playing politics of interest. Because those that you see in power today are only enjoying it. The moment they leave power, they will be the one agitating for other political parties to be registered. And in fact, don't be surprised, majority of them own some of these political parties because they are looking for ways that immediately they lose that seat in this particular place, they will go back to another political party. Imagine, just imagine, if the NCP won an election in Ekiti State. When we won an election state assembly in Ekiti State, our member was already gagged one way or the other, and then he has to leave because they are not giving him any support because he comes from the opposition party. So he has to leave that own party to another political party. He's not being protected until when we make stringent law. Serious stringent law. That was why we are asking for the balkanization of INEC. We say that INEC should remain three. They will have three of them. One, that one will take care of the electoral processes and monitoring of election process only. Two, we talk about delineation of the constituency, which National Population Commission and the Bureau of Statistics should take care of. Then the enforcement rules of arresting and detaining and doing what is supposed to be done in case you are found wanting in our electoral process should be. And then those are three things. And those are things that can help in strongly getting our democracy in line. There's no way that is acceptable when you go to a politicking and you contest election under a political party. After winning, the next thing you will do is to leave that political party and go. What about the manifesto that you sent to the people? That's treasonable. It's unacceptable. So we need to get a reform that will take care of the funding of the political party, will take care of the issue of ideology, will take care of the processes of electioneering, and then will ensure also the issue of governance, which is key. Because actually, what is democracy all about? Is democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But in this case, majority of the people, can you imagine, only two political parties are taking full charge of this electoral process at the disadvantage of other political parties. How can you say there's equity and justice and fairness? There is none. So anybody that is postulating that is making a fundamental mistake. And that is the reason why we felt very, very, very hot that even Mr. President did not invite any of the other political parties when he was doing his inauguration. Neither has he invited them to sit down with him and talk about the future of this country. Neither has he asked them what is their own view. 72 presidential candidates contest against the president. That sends a signal that these people are ready to serve. And then they cannot be thrown into the dustbin. They must be carried along and be discussed with. Otherwise, what you are causing for yourself is that they will continue to be an opposition to you. But when you carry them along, they work with you, they give you suggestions. Believe me, all of them will work together and then Nigeria will be a prosperous nation. But at this rate, we are making a fundamental mistake and which is detrimental to our democratic setting. But we, of course, will continue to chant our cause and continue to agitate so that Nigeria can be a better place to live. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Yunus Atanko. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in Mr. Femi Adesina. Mr. Femi Adesina, just before we got into the issue of one of the key institutions of democracy, which has to do with political parties and so on and so forth, we're already talking about some of the freedoms, associational rights and all of that inherent in Chapter 4 of the Constitution. For the perspective of the media, have we had a sea change in terms of our experience versus what played out during the military rule?
I believe so. In fact, very, very, very wide difference between the liberties, if I can use that word, that the media has under democracy compared to military rule. For those who practice, you knew that there were things you wrote, there were reports you filed, and you went home and you were not sure whether when you returned to work the next day, your office will still be open. Many times we had media houses sealed up, we had journalists locked up, but that has rarely happened, if it happened at all, in 20 years of democracy. So I think the freedom that the media has is a lot wider and quite different from what happened under the military. I think it has even gone into some excesses in certain aspects of the media. Not too much with the traditional media, but with the social media, the digital media and the social media variant of it. You see that they take all liberties. They use all sorts of epithets for people who hold public offices, and they get away with it. It never would have happened under the military. Even now, there are some countries, if on social media you use certain kinds of words against your leaders, you still are held accountable. But in Nigeria, it's an all-commerce affair. I think there is a lot of latitude, a lot of freedom for the media to operate. The next thing is just for the media to then control itself so that that latitude is not used as license to say all sorts of things.
It's just still on this extension of freedom into the arena of license. Now, away from the media, some observers will say that part of what we have seen in the Fourth Republic since 1999 has just been citizens sometimes taking the laws into their own hands. Is the extreme abuse of freedom, and you find it in the wanton bloodletting communal clashes and so on and so forth that people have had. There seems to be quite some impatience with due process, even though the underpinning of democracy itself is due process. How do we reconcile this?
It's a serious issue because, yes, due process can be slow and painstaking, but then you have to be patient and let it play out. But what we see in Nigeria is that people seem to believe that the due process will not serve their interests. So they act, they take laws into their hands. I think we should, after 20 years of democracy, we should begin to ensure that those who take laws into their hands are dealt with expeditiously. I think that is the operative word. In what year was that? There were some disturbances in London some years back. There were riots and shops were looted and there was brigandage everywhere. Within 6 months or thereabout, everybody that took part in that disturbance had been convicted. Those who should be jailed had been jailed, and those who should be set free had been set free. In that kind of society, people will think twice before they take the laws into their hands. But in a milieu where you take the laws into your hands and you get away with it, of course, the next community will do it. The next person will do it. So I believe that we must get to a point where there is expeditious trial and sentencing in Nigeria.
Mr. Adesina, still with you, and I'm taking you back to the media aspects for our democratic practice. For someone like you, doing your job as a media personnel, and also now, of course, this present administration, you served as a special advisor. Now, managing the media coverage or managing the media activities of your principal, as well as reporting back to the people, is one huge task. Yeah. Of course, we've had a situation where, okay, if it's a government media, it's okay, no, we know what they will say, and all of that. But then you still hold the trust to bring your principal in a good light before the people he's serving. Managing that for 20 years, whether for you or for some of your other colleagues, how has it worked for us?
I think by and large, it has worked well. But then you have a cynical public that wants to believe that anything that comes from government is a lie. Anything that government says has been colored, and that government is trying to hide something. But democracy itself goes with transparency. When you have any form of opacity, then it's not democracy. That is why democracy at all times must be open. And if Nigerians themselves know that democracy goes with openness, why then do they have the proclivity to disbelieve what they hear? For instance, the Muhammadu Buhari administration that I've served for 4 years will not hide anything, will not color anything. I was the newly elected executive of the Nigeria Guild of Editors visited the vice president a couple of weeks ago. And I told them that this is an administration which in 4 years has possibly not called a single editor to say, help us manage this story. You know what we mean when we say, help us manage this story. Either kill it or underplay it, but this administration will not do it. Then why is the public still of the mind that whatever they say is a lie? I think that is an area where we need to improve in our democracy. The public must learn to believe an administration it has elected more. But I also think one of the problems is that after elections, we are still in election mode in Nigeria. In other countries, when elections are concluded, you are one country and you move on till another election. Here, people who are in opposition stay in opposition till the next elections come. It doesn't have to be so.
Could that have been what Alhaji Tanko was trying to raise, that your opposition is permanently kept out, not brought into action?
Yes, stop? But with Dr. Tanko, what he said, I think when you have election results in which a government is not able to form, a party is not able to form government wholesale, you can have what you call a government of national unity, bringing in other parties and all that. But when the results are so clear and you have a clear majority, then it's a matter of your decision if you want to invite the opposition. You are not bound to. To a large extent, maybe it may not be the right expression, but the one that comes to my mind is the winner takes it all.
Well, that's right. Incidentally, I'm sure Professor somebody were with us on Good Morning Nigeria when we were discussing the challenges arising from our current electoral system, which has to do with first past the post versus proportional representation, which Dr. Yunusa Tanko was advocating. I mean, those are matters that will keep coming up. Clear evidence is, take a state, for instance, the governor or the candidate who wins the election scores, say, 1 million votes. The candidate who loses scores 900,000 and 950 votes. What it means is that those 900,000 and 950 votes are wasted. Why the 1 million votes will take it, but elsewhere in proportional representation, it means that you will take your seats in parliament on the basis of the proportion of the votes that you have scored, and you will also take your seat in cabinet on the basis of the votes that you have scored. So everybody has a footing, not a government of national unity that oftentimes will arise because there is a crisis situation in the environment. But I want us to return, Professor Osumbo, to the issue of rule of law. Where freedom has often been mistaken for license, and therefore the question arises whether the rule of law has been under threat in the Fourth Republic, and if so, what needs to be done?
Yes, I'll answer that, Kingsley, but let me just quickly, on the issue of parties' involvement in the running of government, is that the example you cited, you said parliament. I presuppose that proportional representation and parliamentary system are more to be found, they go together, not proportional representation within a presidential system. That is rather unusual. So since we've chosen to run a presidential system, proportional representation would be not quite compatible with that.
I'm sorry to jump in, Professor Osumbo. You talked earlier about what happened up until the 28th of May 1999 when we had a military. Nigerians didn't choose a presidential system of government. It was imposed by the military in 1970. All right. Professor Osumbo, please continue.
Well, that is a different debate. Yes. On the issue, okay, and also quickly, parties are formed for the purpose of winning election and being able to form a government. Parties are not formed in order that you will be noticed and then invited to come and quote and unquote come and chop. That is not the purpose, because if you begin to introduce that, then it will worsen the situation that we are talking about. You will probably have about 500 political parties, because each of those 500 political parties is expecting Mr. President to call them, to come and sit and run the government together with him. We will be moving into very dangerous and murky terrain. Now come to the issue of
rule of law.
Rule of law, the role of the media. I want to add to what Femi Adesina mentioned about the role of the media, that even now it enjoys constitutional backing. Under the military, it didn't. Under the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy, Chapter 2 of the Constitution, the media has a responsibility to hold government accountable. This didn't exist before, and under the military, it could not even be thought of, even when the media itself was always under threat by the military. Now the rule of law, we talk about impunity and lack of understanding by most people. I have heard people say, oh, we are in a democracy, therefore we can do whatever we like. So the issue of freedom is again taken to its extremes. The countries from where we have borrowed democracy, they know that there are limits to this freedom. In fact, for each of those fundamental rights under the Constitution, there are limits, there are qualifications. Rights are not absolute. But there are many Nigerians who believe in a democracy you can kill and get away with it, that we are a democracy, there is freedom. But with education, I believe that more and more Nigerians will come to understand that you cannot just continue to behave in a way that doesn't conduce to the well-being of other Nigerians and the progress of our democracy. What I just described can be seen in other facets of life. Take any sector. You will find that there is a tendency for people to believe they can do anything and get away with it. And that is not helpful. The government has been doing a lot to introduce checks, to check some of the delays and the difficulties that, say, the judicial process suffers from as a result of some of these excesses. By introducing the Administration of Criminal Justice Bill, one of the things that Defense Counsel have been used to doing, is to use all kinds of interlocutory appeals to ensure that a trial is never concluded, because they know that their client has a very bad case. If that case is prosecuted to conclusion, the man will go to jail. So what does the counsel do? He introduces objections, interlocutory appeals at one stage or the other until many of the witnesses will die and so forth. Even some will lose interest. The police IPOs may have been transferred from one end of the country to another. The Administration of Criminal Justice Bill intends to check some of these excesses by ensuring that even if you have objections, make your objection, but that doesn't stop the trial. Yeah. The trial will continue, and in the end, the judge will be able to take into consideration the merits or whether or not your objection has merits. So this, we will continue to try our best to improve on the system. This is Democracy is a system we have chosen by ourselves to run. Nobody is going to come from another country to help us deepen or improve our democracy. Democracy is the best form of government, but it is not without its flaws. Democracy comes with a lot of flaws, a lot of problems. It is our responsibility to work on those problems and ensure that in the next 10, 20 years, that we'll be able to sing more interesting songs about what democracy has been able to do for us as a country, Nigeria. That is my hope. That is my expectation.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor. And gentlemen, we'll go on a break now. When we return, we'll take a look at what responses we have from our viewer watching us on this particular edition of taking a look at 20 positives to 20 years of democratic experiment. We'll be right back after this break. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria.
Television studio lighting requires skills which can only be acquired through professional training. NTA TV College JOS therefore invites engineers and technical officers in public and private television stations to a special 4-week course on television studio lighting. Date 10th June to 5th July 2019. Course fee 100,000 naira only per participant. Accommodation fees inclusive. Venue NTA TV College, Rayfield, JOS. The course will expose participants to modern techniques and technologies of television studio lighting, operation of studio lighting equipment, and the profound effect of lighting on television broadcast. For more enquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Hold it! Me, I don't comot my hand from oil bunkering. General, what you gonna yarn? What did the yarn serve? I don't understand though. Because they spoil our water and our environment. And they cause our people serious harm. Militants is there. You know good. Me, I not do again Sam. Because why? Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back. NST, Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are broadcasting live, as always, from our Abuja headquarters studios. As my colleague Blessing indicated, we have a number of tweets that have come in from our viewers who've taken advantage of our Twitter handle. You see it there on the screen at NTA GMA. We'll take some of those tweets now. Emmanuel Esubok has this one. It says, we still have a long way to go. Full stop.
Festus Akimboyo tweets, 20 years of uninterrupted democracy has encouraged freedom of speech and greater youth participation in politics. However, we must learn to handle our struggles with issues of corruption, political infighting, and inequality through the democratic process.
Badamasi Adamu tweets, although we adopted it just to please the mother of all democracies, that's the US, but there's little improvement in our political culture. And for us to gain more, FCT must be given a state status.
Sunny Michael Omokoji says, I remembered how Nigerians were sleeping at nightel in those days just to make a call, and sometimes a call might not even get through. Hence, to me, the revolution in telecommunications sector today is something worth giving kudos to the government. Let's see such stride in the power sector.
All right, now this is from Jimmy T. Martins. Now, from the years I've experienced democracy, I can say we are much more on the right track of democracy now. We vote and our votes count. That notwithstanding, we expect more.
Onoye Victor says the federal government should make state governors fight corruption. They are docile in the fight and should not leave it to the president alone if Nigeria must grow.
All right, Dele Jack Solomon. Nigerians will earn the dividends of democracy when the power elite become completely subject to the powers of the electorate and consequently act only in accordance to their will. Then it will be impossible for them, that's the power elite, to rig elections and steal public funds.
This Twitter handle is God Bless Uko. His concern is, I pray that the present government can cut salaries of political office holders to help fund infrastructure development.
Cecilia Okoroma tweets, we are glad that democracy is stabilizing in Nigeria, no longer nascent. Now, as a leader, if you don't perform, you are putted out.
And from Alhaji Musa Muhammad Hadija is this tweet, following 20 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria, there is a need to sustain the following gains: fighting corruption, infrastructure, social intervention programs, agricultural schemes, and single treasury account policy that boost the country's economy.
Motana Farouk, democracy as a system of government is acceptable, but the way and manner in which it is being run by some politicians in Nigeria is unacceptable. Equality is a basic element of democracy, but the disparity between the leaders and the led in Nigeria is what? Is it democracy? All right. So these are some of the tweets that we'll take in the meantime from our guests, our viewers. Let's go over to Dr. Yunusa Tanko again in our Kaduna Network studios. Dr. Yunusa Tanko, one of the issues again dealing with the institutions of democracy, political parties, elections, of course there are all kinds of issues that we have with our elections, but part of the commonest complaint that we often hear is the so-called recruitment process. Now, the view is out there that in a wide variety of cases, the best often doesn't get elected, whether at the local, state, or federal level. And we have to worry about our recruitment process. And two issues that arise from this, the so-called Godfather syndrome, and the fact that persons who are of less nobler intentions hijack the political structures and are the so-called political leaders in their communities. What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much for this question. Let me quickly just respond to Prof. and additional. Prof. Made a statement that's got to inviting people to come and shop. That's actually demeaning for the political parties. Why I'm saying so is that when you look at it at the moment now, the people in government, jokingly, are they chopping stone? That's the question. We are here in Nigeria when you saw Pullion vans, 3 Pullion vans being moved into a political party leader's house. What was it? Is it a bank? Was that place a bank or probably a business arena? So, and believe me, what I said earlier was very, very clear. I said other political parties have other issues, very new ideas to put into the system. We are not begging to be in that position or be carried along. No, and then when additional also mentioned the issue of winner-take-all syndrome, and at the same time you seem to be still contesting election after election has already been won and lost. The truth is that election does not seem to be seen to be not to be won, but it seems to be won fairly and squarely. If not, we can see what is happening in our tribunals. We have large cases of tribunal because people are not happy with the way in which the process takes place. So what we postulate and what we prioritize is we are giving suggestions that can help the nation to move. But of course, it's your choice not to take these particular suggestions, as the case may be. You are very, very much aware, coming back to your question, that when you come to the issue of recruitment, the recruitment exercise is not been fair to majority of the political parties. The younger ones are craving to be in power. They are tired of the recycling of these particular leaders. And these leaders only take their solace and their strength from what they've been able to acquire from the system. We know the history of each and every some of these particular people who are now present leaders in our political system. Majority of them did not have money, neither did they have any particular political training, but when they got in, they were able to harness a lot of wealth for themselves. And that is the reason why, for as beautiful and professional and academic erudite as Professor Usumbo was, when he contested election in Edo State, he lost. But when he lost, it doesn't mean that he's not qualified. He is far, far better qualified. But because when you look at it, probably he doesn't have that enough watches to have talented particular people in the position. If he has, he will have been one of the best governors that Edo State will have seen. But these are some of the issues that we are talking about. people like us, there are better individuals in Nigeria, younger ones who can do better, who can transform this country, but the opportunity seems not to be there. A spouse of mine once mentioned to me that the truth about Nigerian problem is that when you are yourself, when you are outside, by the time you get in, there are some kind of a cabal within the particular system that change your mindset. As we speak today, an 89-year or 79-year person was being presented to the Senate for ministerial position. What happened to the 29, to the 30s, to the 50s? What are we talking about? So the recruitment process has been gagged within certain political parties, and other ones who want to run have to go to the other political parties. That is why the multi-party democratic system gives you room to ventilate. I can't remember. With all due respect, let me use myself as an example. Many Nigerians didn't know me before. But it was because I became a member of the National Conscience Party, which is a political party who fought for party democratic system in Nigeria. And today, I can tell you, as one of the youngest political party as at that time, I became the chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. When Jega speak, I speak next. How do you discover people like us if we do not have this political party? How would the recruitment process would have been? Or better people will have been, better people than me, who are already in the system, will have been able to evolve. There wouldn't have been, because I would have been queuing up to now in APC or PDP. And so that is the reason why the recruitment process must be given a room to triumph, so that apart from us remaining only in party leadership, we don't need to go and beg and come and chop, but rather to come and perform when we had that opportunity to perform. But the opportunity is not being given. We are not asking for it. We'll continue to fight, but what we are saying is that the processes of that giving us that particular room to perform and ventilate our position and actively be involved should be made free and fair. Not for those who are already been able to be in power and continue to rigmarole and recycle themselves continuously. What you are asking for is a revolution that may take place through the democratic process in the nearest future, and that has already started. Even when Mr. Bedouin was actually begging the youth that you shouldn't contest after during this particular, but the youth still stand firm, and they will continue to contest. Some of us will continue to agitate until the system is clean, so that we can have, either if it not give us the right to have that particular contest, we will demand for it by demonstration, we will demand for it through law cases, we will demand for it to ensure that the system gives room for a new and reverberating people who have the capacity to move this country to a modern day life, not in an analog age.
Doctor, thank you very much. So where do we have the greatest threat? The political class of people or the structures in itself? Where do we need to tweak to actually make it work for us?
Three things happen. One, in the structure. Two, in the political elite who have already been continuously to recycle themselves. And thirdly, which is fundamental to all other people, which I've all been telling my comrades, that we need to find a way of resources. These resources is not to you to pay or bribe people to vote for you. No. I ran for election. I got 3,000 plus votes. I am very, very happy and very, very grateful to those who voted for me, because I didn't pay them. But we need money for publicity. We need money for logistics to move from point A to point B. We need money to people. I ran for election and I went to only 6 zones. With my meager resources, NTA was there. I went to only 6 zones. But if we had money, majority of the people who run for election, the funding, will have been able to put all other contestants under the carpet. I can assure you that. But here we are, we only gratify those who have been able to steal this country into a point of stupor, and then we make them our lords and masters, even when they have nothing to give. But they will keep on, year by year, putting in their own cronies and friends and girlfriends into position of power, and at the end of the day, they cannot be able to perform. We will sit back in our room and continue to agitate and argue, but meanwhile, the system is decayed and flawed until when we clean that particular system and make it functional for anybody who wants to aspire, irrespective of where you come from, different religion, tribe, or anywhere you come from, as long as you can take care of the interests of the Nigerian people, then you are the man for the job. But when you start using ideology of this is my own person, I keep on saying one thing. If one, for example, one day we will have a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that we will appoint his ADC, and maybe if he's a Hausa man, he will appoint his ADC as an Igbo man. without being afraid that that particular person will be the next person that will kill him. When you take a Yoruba man and becoming the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you take an Hausa man as his ADC, or the way around, an Igbo man taking a Hausa man, or when you form a kitchen cabinet, the kitchen cabinet carried along all the different parts of this country, not some people from certain parts of this country, because those one will not tell you the truth of what is happening in other parts of the country. They will not tell you. They will only be singing the praises that you want to hear. You are the best. You are doing the best thing for Nigeria. And meanwhile, things are going wrong in other parts of the country. And when we said that we want everybody to be carried along, when you are in government, when you are practicing and you are contributing to the government, there is no way you will join forces in bringing that government down.
All right, Dr. Yunusa Tanko, thank you very much there for the wide range views that you have expressed. Just to bring in again Femi additional on the issue of political reform, but just before we do, I mean, you heard Dr. Tanko, among other things, say that asking a question whether those who are in government, those who are in power, whether they are eating stone. I'm just wondering, I'm sure Dr. Tanko knows that the quality of Nigerian rice has so improved that the rice is destoned, so there's no more stone in the rice. So maybe that would be an incentive for more players to come to the table now and say, oh man, let's get a spoon and then also join, as Professor Osumba was saying. Of course, this was by way of metaphor. Femi additional, the issue of political recruitment, the political recruitment process, how we can tap in on our very best to be sure that the gains of democracy continue to be compounded. What in your opinion, has gone wrong and how might this be rectified?
Yes, I think that's one of the advantages we get when a government also has another term in office like this one has got. It's able to learn from the mistakes and the shortcomings of the first term. And in one of those areas it will learn is in the areas of recruitment. I recall that when the president met with youths and women at the presidential banquet hall before the election, was it before or shortly after, he promised an inclusive government in which there will be more women and more youths given opportunities and position to serve in government. But he said, it does not mean I'm going to forget people of my own generation. So it's going to be broad-based. And I believe that this time around, the recruitment process will be better. It will be better. If there were shortcomings before, they will be corrected. And that is what we should do government after government. Improve on the process of recruitment of people into government. A country must always put its best foot forward at any given time.
All right, Professor Osumbo, Femi Adesina has taken this from the appointive perspective, but there is also the elective perspective, which is where you have the most squabbles. Usually with congresses and the conventions that they have to say, look, who becomes a candidate of our party? And to the extent, of course, that you have the first past post the system, all of that will continue. Then the godfathers, stay in the wings and, get, all kinds of people whom they think are malleable. Have we, as part of our democratic maturation, reached that stage where, okay, we can begin to now jettison some of these negative practices that we have had in terms of just handpicking persons as candidates, rather than those whom the party members themselves feel, could be their best foot forward?
Well, thank you, Kingsley. Let me first thank Alhaji Yunusa Tanko for the compliments he paid to me. I quite appreciate that. And to say that his response to the issue of leadership recruitment looked at the elective political office holders, whereas our friend here, Femi, looked at political recruitment from the executive angle. And the political parties' angle. I have this belief that the economy drives the entire process. As they say, even an army moves on its stomach because a hungry army cannot fight. So if you want an army that can move, they move on their stomach. They must be well fed. Likewise, a political process would produce the result that the ideal situation that we expect if the people are a bit more comfortable economically. There is an extent to which the ideals of democracy can play out in an economically deprived environment. And this, whether you are talking of political godfathers, these godfathers, they spend a lot of money. They are not just godfathers by name. They are godfathers because maybe there are people who come to eat amala. You know, there are people, they supply free amala to hundreds of people every day at the garrison. So, because people are hungry, and once that political godfather who feeds them, tell them this is what to do, they will do it. And also, even the political actors, candidates that emerge through this process, that you would think this is not the best that the system can throw up. But because they are money bags, they buy their way through the political parties process, through the voters, and before you know it, they get elected and they are your representatives. Because these days, a lot of the voters, they talk about vote buying now. It started as stomach infrastructure, which was infra-dig at that time. It was fashionable, and the person who introduced it, he was playing smart politics, and people celebrated him. But now it has become vote buying, which is wrong. And it's condemnable. But so long as people are hungry and they think that this 2,000 naira or 5,000 naira that this politician is or his agent is offering him can solve a lot of problems for him or her, then there's an extent to which you can continue to preach for them to hear. So a combination of the economic system, the prevailing system, plus also the value system of the people. That is another thing. There are people who will say that, no, I will only vote for somebody who gives me money. People have told me that let me be honest with you. We like you, we will listen to you, but in this election that is coming, is whoever gives us money that we will vote for. What is your response? So it's either I give him money to vote independently, or he goes away and votes according to who gives him the highest amount of money. So this is cumulatively the lead to what we are saying, that the products of democracy, of the system, are really not the best, that we should, as he said, we should be able to put our best foot forward. We should be able to present our first 11. But that is not happening because of these economic or financial problems and the value system that seem to have been degenerating. It's been steadily degenerating in our country. But you have a role to play, the media, to try and educate the people more, to see that there is more to this life than just chop. They say you just chop this meat. You chop it, it will finish. For the next 4 years, you would be confronted with the bad choice that you made. And just before I round up on this, things are not as bad as they seem. There was a program on election observation, election observers last year, co-sponsored by the EU and I think INEC and some other organizations. The consensus of the participants there was that the quality of elections in Nigeria now is improving. There's less of ballot snatching, there's less of violence, and I believe that steadily, as we make these reforms in our electoral system and laws, we will see the system improving. And of course, the government has been doing a lot to revamp the economy. We do hope that as we begin to see the results in the quality of life of the people, then they will be able to resist the lure of money in the choice that they make.
All right, it's on that note, we'd like to thank three guests who have been with us this morning discussing 20 years of uninterrupted democracy as the second installment of our series celebrating 20 years of uninterrupted democracy since 1999. Professor Sereme Osumbo, former governor of Edo, would like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you very much.
We also would like to appreciate Mr. Femi Adesina, who joined us here from our Abuja studios. And from our Kaduna Network Center, our deep thanks to Dr. Yunus Atanko. Dr. Atanko, thank you for being on our program this morning. All right, now let's go over to our complimentary segments, and here is the sports desk.
Super Eagles captain Mikel Obi has arrived at the team's camp in Asaba, Delta State, ahead of the preparation for the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations tournament billed for Egypt. The former Middlesbrough midfielder, who had been on a self-imposed 11-month absence from the Super Eagles duties, was among the early arrivals in camp, along with Leon Balogun, Ola Aino and Shimi Ajayi. Other players who also breezed into camp Sunday afternoon included Moses Simon, Chidozie Awaziem and Jamilu Collins. The likes of John Ogu, Ahmed Musa, Shehu Abdullahi, Victor Osimhen, Wilfred Ndidi, Ogenekaro Etebo are billed to arrive on Monday. Nigeria will face Zimbabwe at the Stephen Keshi Stadium on June 8th before departing Nigeria the next day for Ismaila, Egypt for their final camp ahead of the tournament. Meanwhile, third seed Roger Federer coasted into the French Open quarterfinal